I used to spend 5 hours prepping for a 4-hour D&D session. I would write pages of dialogue, I would draw all these complex maps, and try to predict exactly what my players would do. And every single time, without fail, they would walk the other way, they would talk to the other person, they would do literally anything else except what I had planned, and half of my prep would end up in the trash. Now, if you ask me, I think that's the fastest way to burn out as a DM. You start to maybe even potentially resent your players for ruining the story, whatever that means. But the truth is, the story was never yours to write in the first place. And lately, I've switched to a new system, or I guess a new structure, a new skeleton that I have learned to fit onto basically a single page. It takes me about 15 minutes to fill out, and honestly, my games have never been better, or at least I haven't felt better running my games. So today I'm going to show you exactly what's on this sheet and how it actually gives your players more freedom while you, as the DM, do less work. The fundamental mistake that most of us dungeon masters make is prepping a plot. A plot is a sequence of events. Players go here, they talk to this guy, and they fight the dragon. If the players don't talk to that guy, then your plot breaks apart. If they kill the dragon early, then your entire session is over because all you had prepped was a dragon. Instead, we're going to prep ingredients. So I want you to think of it like a kitchen. If you have the right ingredients on the counter, you can cook whatever meal the players ask for in real time. So I have broken down my skeleton, I don't know what else to call it, into ingredient boxes. So the first thing that I do is I have a strong start. I will write down exactly where we are the second the dice hit the table. So most DMs will start with like, so what do you want to do? And then everybody just kind of stares at their character sheets for 10 minutes. Don't do that. Remember, you are the guide. Unless you're lucky enough to have a leader at the table, and by that I mean a player that is like a leader amongst the players or even amongst the player characters, chances are you're going to need to take the reins on occasion. So where did they leave off last session? Ask yourself that. I mean, literally ask yourself that right now. Say it out loud like it's Blue's Clues. Now, think about what is an interesting point to kick off from. So if there was an explosion at the docks last session before you called it, then the strong start here might be that as people start running and screaming around, suddenly somebody taps you on the shoulder, and it's a rogue. It's the rogue that you met at the tavern 3 sessions ago, and she nods at you and tells you to follow her. And now, boom, now you have something unique, something that circles back to something familiar from another session, and it immediately gives your players a direction. Will they 100% go with that rogue? No, of course not. There's always a chance that they will decide that they're not trustworthy, or they don't want to go that way, or they just don't like the way they look, or whatever. And that's okay. That's why we're talking about this here and now. My point is that first, you want to start with an inciting incident. There's that filmmaking talk that I like. A messenger collapses at their feet, or a fire breaks out. A thief grabs their coin purse. So what I mean is just start with a verb, set the pacing, set the tone, and all of that prep by just asking yourself, where are we starting this session right away before you even started the session, relieves a lot of that player awkwardness that you get in the initial sort of start of the session. So now the second thing that you want to do is think about 3 pillars. So instead of having a linear map, I make a single box for combat, I make one for social interactions, like role-playing, and one for exploration. Now, what I'm not doing is mapping the whole session, because chances are if you do map an entire session, you're going to get pushback, whether that's intentional or not, because players don't want to be told what to do. Instead, I just prep one interesting setup for each type of encounter that they might encounter, I guess. So for combat, I mean, ask yourself, what's the terrain? What does the combat look like? What's the fun mechanic you're going to introduce? For a social, who is an NPC that has a secret? Somebody that they can meet. And for exploration, just add one weird magical thing that they can poke with a stick. So that can be literally anything. By having one of each of those things ready, you are prepared no matter which of those 3 pillars your players gravitate towards, or all 3 in a single session. Now, what's important here is to not be hyper specific. So I want you to think more modular. So for combat, you're not prepping a forest ambush, because if you're in a city, for example, chances are they're probably not going to make it to a forest at the end of the session. So instead, prep a hazard. So it could be you put down crumbling pillars and a couple of notes there under crumbling pillars that are prone to collapsing, and maybe give them some cover. That's a tiny mechanic that you can implement. So if the players pick a fight in a tavern, well, those pillars are now rickety balcony supports. If they fight in a cave, then those are stalagmites. But the idea is that you're prepping the mechanic, and that means that whatever fight they pick, it has now become more interesting and should fit into whatever you have prepped for that combat pillar. For social, you're not prepping a script. You're not saying an NPC is going to say this, this, and this. You are prepping a single NPC that has a specific agenda. So Barnaby the merchant wants to get out of town because he owes money to the wrong people. Boom, that's it. It doesn't matter if the players meet him at the gates, if they meet him at the tavern or at the docks. Barnaby is Barnaby. He is a plug-and-play ingredient. Now, for exploration, you can prep one weird interactive object or a puzzle or something like that, right? It could be a glowing fountain that leads to a hidden underground facility, or it can be a puzzle box or a vibrating statue. I don't know why a vibrating statue sounded really weird, but it makes me think weird things now. So if the players go off path and explore a random ruin, you can drop that object in there, or you can drop that puzzle in there. So by having one of each of these things ready, you aren't forcing them down a path. You're just making sure that no matter which direction they run into something that is high quality because you have spent this time right now, these 10 or 15 minutes planning that. Tired of your players walking into a tavern and you've got nothing prepared? The bar is, made of wood? Boring. Introducing Describe. The radical new way to sound like a legendary dungeon master without writing a single word. All the cool kids are doing it. Thousands of professionally written descriptions, taverns, monsters, dungeons, items, and more. Need music? Use Describe. It's got ambience so good you'll feel like you are getting eaten by an owlbear. Oh no! Just plug them in, drop in the text, and blast your players straight into cinematic immersion. Describe, because your world deserves more than, it's wooden. Use my code at checkout. Now, the third thing that I do is to create a list of 10 secrets and clues. Now, this is basically the brain of the operation, and yes, it does connect back directly to those 3 pillars. These are 10 little bits of information that the players need in order to move the story forward. So, the Duke is being poisoned, or the cave entrance is hidden behind the waterfall. You don't need to tie those secrets to a specific place. Instead, you just need to keep them on a list. So, when the players use your social pillar and they talk to Barnaby the merchant, you give them secret number 1. If they skip Barnaby and go straight to the combat pillar, then they can find a letter on the body of the guard that contains secret number 1. So you see how no matter what they're doing, you're giving them the piece of information that they need, regardless of which direction they go, because now you're not thinking about a plot, you're thinking about key moments that need to get dropped in, and you have a sort of formula to make sure that those moments get hit. This is how you give your players all the freedom that they want and still give them everything they need to know in order to push the story forward, or to grow, or to move into the next interesting setting, whatever. Those 3 pillars are basically like your delivery vehicles. So those fights, the conversations, that discovery of the item or the puzzle or whatever, those are the vehicles. And you want to consider the 10 secrets or tips as the cargo. By keeping them separate, you can let your players go anywhere and do anything, and they will always feel like they are uncovering some deep pre-planned story, and you look like a genius who planned for every possible encounter, but really you just stopped gluing your clues to the floor and gave yourself a little bit of breathing room and freedom. So now the 4th thing that you want to do is think about some character hooks. I like to leave a small little space to write down one specific thing for each player. So if the paladin is looking for his long lost brother that he lost in a battle 10 years ago, I write down brother's crest on a shield. It takes literally 10 seconds to write, but when that shield shows up in the combat pillar or the exploration pillar, it feels like the entire campaign suddenly has become centered around them, even though it may or may not have come up in this session. It could have easily not have come up. And then finally, the last thing is the fail forward box. So this is kind of like your safety net. I like to ask myself, what happens if they lose the fight? What happens if they fail the stealth check or miss the clue? In a bad game, and by that I mean a DM that has no idea what they're doing or has no prep, a failed roll means that the story stops. They come to a halt, they suddenly have no idea where the story's gonna go. In a great game, and by that I mean a DM that's prepared and knows what they're doing, a failed roll means that the story gets more complicated. That doesn't mean that they don't find the key, but maybe they get captured and taken to the room where the key is kept. This sort of fail forward box means that the story never grinds to a halt just because of a bad roll, and ultimately this box really just means yes and. They did this, so instead of saying they can no longer move forward with the next plot point, it's like, okay, they failed, and now what? What happens next? I hope that helps, and I know that a lot of you have been asking to see some of the behind the scenes process for my notes that I used for my own game, so to keep this channel running and to help save you some time, I have actually taken this one-page skeleton thing, I'm sure I'll come up with a cool name at some point, and I've turned it into a printable PDF for you. It's a little template that you can fill out. It's available on my Patreon right now. I just want to give you the tools that you need to make your story part of the D&D sessions that you want them to be, and I'm already using them, so I figured, there you go. Make it easy for you to run your table. So if you feel like grabbing that, trying it out for your next session, go to my Patreon. Links down in the description down below. You can scan this QR code and let me know if it changes your game like it changed mine. Again, the goal here isn't to be lazy, it's to be efficient. When you stop worrying about what happens next, you free up your brain to actually listen to your players. You stop looking at your notes and you start looking at them, at your players, and interacting with the story. And that's where the best stories happen. I think it's the gaps between the preparation that you have made and the chaos that they bring. When you can mix those things together into a big kitchen soup, because I dropped the metaphor halfway through the video, you know, I just think that that makes for the best games. So stop overthinking your lore, stop writing novels that your players are never going to read. You're doing too much work, and you know, get yourself focused. Focus on your ingredients and you just go cook. Just go cook, man. Just go cook, man.
Yes, chef. Yes, chef.
And now it's time for some quick shout outs. Froshmintz says, hey, kitty, with a C, because you're a monster. Gracie or Squeak says Tobias at 140. Valen13 says so adorable. And we got one more because why not? And Mickelston9933 says Tobias in the house. You should come party, bro. Just come stop by. You know, Tobias is always taking people. Why am I talking like this, man? Now, if you were paying attention in today's video, leave a timestamp in the comments down below with where you saw Tobias, and you just might get shouted out in the next video. As always, thank you so much for watching. For John, my friends. And remember, Barnaby is Barnaby.
Got a girlfriend?
That's great.